The 1967 unrest.
Cities like smoke everywhere.
50 years later.
That was home, wasn't it?
Where are we now?
Our hope lies in us coming together.
What did we learn? And where are we going? This is a Detroit 2020 Town Hall special event. Detroit 1967, looking back to look forward. Good evening and welcome to our Detroit 2020 Town Hall. Looking back to look forward 50 years after the Detroit 20 riots back in 1967. We are here at Broadcast House with a live studio audience. They just watched the documentary film 12th and Clairmount. Boy, was it powerful. I still feel chills right now. Amazing that I was born and raised in the city of Detroit, and this has been an educational journey for me. Not only watching that documentary film, but talking to the people who were on those streets, citizens, clergy, police officers who actually went through the riots. I am joined by two of my colleagues, anchor and reporter Dave LewAllen and Channel 7 editorial director Chuck Stokes. What did you guys think of that film? I mean, I still have chills after watching that.
This is the second time I've seen it, and it is powerful, impactful, no question about it. And from my perspective, what it does is it leads to questions that are still unanswered. We learned a lot of history. We learned a lot of what has taken place, and we also understand through seeing this film the challenges and perhaps the opportunities that remain for us today to be realized.
Absolutely.
It was also my second time seeing it. Very powerful movie, makes you think. I thought I knew the entire story, but I learned a lot this evening. And I can only think about what my wife and her family must have went through. She remembers the tanks coming down Dexter. I think about the police trying to police that situation. And of course, my colleagues, Jim Harrington, Eric Smith, Bill Bonds, Eric, who's here this evening, what it must have been like trying to cover that story.
Quite frightening. I mean, just watching some of the images. But tonight is about moving Detroit forward, and that's why we're having this town hall. So we're going to begin, gentlemen, with the man who's responsible for 12th and Clairmount. He is the director of the film, and that is Brian Kaufman. Please stand for me. Now, Brian, I know when I talked to you, you told me you could have made 4 documentaries. You had that much material. What has been the reaction to 12th and Clairmount?
Well, the reaction has been, people have watched it. We've shown it now probably 10 plus times, and almost every theater has been a sellout. And so my hope is that not only that we can continue to show it in Detroit, but it finds a national audience as well. You don't make a film like this just for Detroiters. Many of us know the story. You make it for people who aren't from Detroit, who might find insightful experience out of what happened here in their own cities as well. So many cities in that time went through the same thing. So
many people have said Detroit is really on the comeback and the world is watching. So where do we go from here after everything that you have learned?
Well, I think you go back to the closing interview that I ended the film with was given about, as the week came to a close. And it really speaks to what we could do, what we should have done back then, coming together not as separate individuals, not as separate communities, but as one. And we all know how far we have to come still in that regard.
Are we going to see another documentary film from you about Detroit moving forward, maybe the next 50 years?
I don't know. You could probably make 3 other films just in the last 50 years. Of course, the story becomes so complex after 1967 that you could spend your entire career making films about what happened after. So we'll see what's next for me.
Well, I got to tell you, I am so proud that Channel 7 played a role in this film, and you did a marvelous job. So thank you so much, Mr. Brian Kaufman. Thank you. Right now, I'm going to send it over to my colleague, Dave LewAllen, because I know you have somebody in the audience you're going to speak to right now. Dave.
And Carolyn, as you mentioned, our studio audience is here to offer their insight, perspective, reflection perhaps on the movie and most importantly, moving Detroit forward. Linda is here with me. If you'd stand, Linda, I can help you. You told me that you grew up in the area in 1967.
Yes, I was born and raised on a block off of 12th and 94. I lived there until I was 15 years old. So I was born in 1953, so I was 13 when this happened.
And you were on the streets with me.
Yes, I was on the streets with all my friends and that, didn't realize what was going on. but I'm still in Detroit. I'm also a West Vernon patroller, and I'm still helping as I retired, I started helping, working with the police and trying to make our city still a safer place.
All right. Why was that important for you to do that?
I guess because during the riot, I felt like I was lost. I didn't have a say-so. I couldn't do anything. As a 13-year-old, you really can't do anything to stop what you've seen. All the fires, all the killing, the people that were hurt. You couldn't do anything, but now I can and make a difference.
Excellent. Linda, thank you. It's great to have you here tonight.
Thank
Appreciate
you, Linda.
being here.
Thank you,
Yes.
Dave. All right, over here I am joined by Marlo Stottlemyre, and you are the director of the Project 67 at the Detroit Historical Museum, correct? Stand up for me, sir. So I know this is about moving Detroit forward. Tell me about the Perspectives exhibit at the Detroit Historical Museum and why it's so important to Detroit now, moving forward.
Yeah, it's important, and thanks for having us here. It opened about a month ago at the Historical Museum, and it's important for people to have an understanding of what happened before '67 and really taking people back 100 years, right? Setting the tone for how things like white flight and Capitol flight didn't just occur overnight, giving perspective around what occurred during that week as we just saw in the film, but most importantly, using the soundtrack of Detroit's voices to really give people that deep dive perspective and the fact that people didn't all experience it the same way. Some people refer to it as a riot, a uprising, rebellion, and to Mr. Kaufman's point, the 50 years after. You know, Shirley Stancato always talks about how '67 wasn't the end of the story. For some people, it was the beginning of the next 50 years, and where is our opportunity today? The quote that says, "There's little we can do about yesterday, but much we can do about tomorrow," that's relevant. There's opportunity here. Even though we got work to do, what will we do?
So I want to hear that from you, because at the exhibit, when Detroiters come and other people come, they can actually look for opportunities, even job opportunities, correct?
Yes, it was important for us to really identify things that are currently moving Detroit forward, right, with a lot of community partners, over 100 community partners who are doing things today for people to find their role in the present in order to inspire the future. The Historical Society is the convener of organizations around race relations, youth, neighborhoods, all of these different things that provide opportunities, including economics, right? The city isn't dead. This is not a blank canvas. And people need to understand that there's opportunity today.
Well, I know you are inviting people to come and look at the exhibit. We're so proud of you and proud of the exhibit and proud of Channel 7's role in it. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to go over to my colleague, Mr. Chuck Stokes, and you have someone in our audience who wants to speak right now.
Mr. Cason, would you stand, please? This is Billy Cason, and I understand this is very, very personal to you, that you go all the way back to that evening 50 years ago at 12th and Clairmount. You were a businessman?
Well, I was not a businessman at that particular time, but I was there. I didn't have no business being there because, you know, I shouldn't. But I was in there after I joined. I was in the Blind Pig when it broke out. And they came downstairs after the police arrested the people upstairs. They showed that. But somebody threw a brick through the pawn shop across the street. And when they broke the window, they went over and grabbed the gates, and they pulled the gates down off of the pawn shop and broke in the pawn shop. And then there was a clothing store right on the corner of 12th and Clairmount. And they broke in there and started stealing the clothes. So I said, well, I better go home because something is about to happen. You know, so,
that was probably pretty good advice.
Right.
50 years later, as you watch Detroit now, as you think about what you want for the future of this city, your thoughts?
We have to come together. We have to come together. All of this, and it has been going on for too long. It's too much racial hate. You understand? Well, it's too much violence going on in the city. Nothing can be accomplished by violence. We have to come together, and we have to, you know, it's just like it used to be the drugs, and then it was the crack, and now I don't know what it is. Now everything is going on. But it's got to be the people at the top. The president of the United States have to speak out about this violence and stuff going on. There's just too much killing going on. We have to come together.
You're hopeful and optimistic for the future.
It's definitely got to happen. This is the only way it's going to work out. We all got to come together and make Detroit. It's coming back though. I love it. It's coming back.
Good.
It's coming back. I'm glad of that. I ride around the city every day, and
And
I
where-
see it. Well, you know, I'm in the magazine business.
Okay.
I publish the Hair Designer magazine, so I'm all over the city dealing with the hairdressers.
Okay.
So I see it's coming back.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Mr. K-Son, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Our
you look
pleasure.
better than you do on television.
The check is in the mail.
All right, thank you so much, Chuck. Let's send it over to Dave LewAllen. I know you have someone in our audience who you're going to speak
Carolyn,
to right
thanks.
now,
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah, we all look better in person than you do on television. At least that's the hope anyway, Chuck. Thank you. Alex Albritton is here. Alex, if you'd stand up. The perspective that you have concerns about the future and going forward. Tell me why.
I do, because I think we first have to recognize where we are today. There's tremendous oppression in the city of Detroit, but it's a different kind of oppression than was the case in 1967. It's an economic oppression, and that's been going on since right after the riot in '67. I noticed that former Mayor Dave Bing made mention of this about a year or so ago, and there's been nothing done about it since. But we certainly need to take a serious look at that, because it creates the kind of environment, a pressure cooker environment, that can cause 1967 to happen all over again.
So there's opportunity, but not enough.
Exactly.
And doesn't include as many as it should.
That's right. We're looking at a population of 85% African American people in Detroit. And if you talk to any black resident in Detroit, they spend $1, they never see it again. It's gone forever. They can't spend it with a black merchant, more than likely. The merchants they spend their money with are of another ethnic group. And while many of them are good merchants and they do a fine job in their community, there are some that don't. But it's the overall message that it sends is that black business basically does not exist in the city of Detroit. That has to be changed. It needs to be changed right away before we go right back to 1967.
Well, none of us want that.
No.
So there's challenge still ahead for us.
Absolutely. But we have to recognize and acknowledge where we are today, how we got there, and what do we do to make this better moving forward.
Alex, thank you. Thank you for being here and for your perspective this evening as well. Thanks you. Alex Albritton. Chuck, we'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Dave. I'm here. Can you please stand, Mr. Hudson? I'm here with Joe Hudson. You saw him in the movie, and he's been a businessman in this community for a long period of time and intimately involved in all of this. Your thoughts 50 years later and the role that the business community hopefully will play going forward.
Well, I've seen the movie twice, and I'm impressed with the presentation, the terrible times that we experienced. But one thing stands out to me, and the title of the movie, and it says behind the frame here, looking back to look forward. And it's done a wonderful job of looking back, but you would expect, and what will happen, because there is a lot of movement in the city, a lot of participation, and we want the community to get involved in the improvements. And there's nothing mentioned in this movie about what has taken place in the past. There was a paragraph that said there was a 39-member committee appointed, and that was the end of that. And if you're going to make this movie into something effective to get the whole region, the suburbs as well as the city involved and participate in helping to improve the community, you want to show that there has been, over the past 50 years, a lot of volunteer participation and effective work. And I think more needs to be said, not to go back and take too much time on what happened, but certainly police-community relationships are much better managed
That's
today.
a key part of the
et
equation.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you need to help get into the action and get everybody in this region involved.
All right. Mr. Hudson, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for being involved for the last 50 years. Carolyn?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chuck. Don't forget, you are watching our Detroit 2020 Town Hall, looking forward to look back 50 years after the 1967 riots. And we want to remind everyone watching from home that we are going to have a special screening of 12th and Clairmount. It's a free screening right at Campus Martius Park. That's happening this Thursday at 8 p.m. We want you all to come out and watch this very powerful documentary, Detroit Free Press film. It has touched everyone in this audience. We will be right back. Welcome back to our Detroit 2020 Town Hall, looking back to look forward 50 years after the 1967 riots. We're here amongst a live studio audience who just watched the documentary film 12th and Clairmount. I am joined right now by Terrence Martin. He's the Vice President of the Detroit Federation of Teachers. Thank you so much for being here. So many people have made comments about the Detroit public school system, even 50 years ago, but now we are here in the now. What is going on in terms of moving education forward, especially in the city of Detroit?
Well, I think that one of the major things is that now the citizens of Detroit now have power over their school district. We just elected a 7-member school board just a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, who are now in control of Detroit public school system now. So really, on the path of moving that district forward. We're also out of the days of emergency management, where the state has been in control of our school district for a number of years now. We now have a brand new superintendent who is an educator, not an emergency manager, he's an educator. And we're really having different conversations right now how to really move education forward in our city.
Tell me, how do we bridge the divide between communities in doing stories about the riots? I heard a lot of white families say they left Detroit because they weren't happy with the education. A lot of black families have left Detroit because of the education in Detroit. But now a lot of white families are coming back to Detroit. Black families are still in Detroit. How do we bridge the divide in the communities and make them feel confident in our educational system?
Well, I think one of the things that, regardless of your culture, your background, that everybody wants the best education for their child. And I think part of that is being involved and engaged in the process. Having an elected school board is great. Having teachers who are quality educators is fantastic. But we also want community involved in what's happening in the Detroit public school system as well. And there are many ways to get involved with that. The district and its officials have been very accommodating to folks who want to get involved and get engaged in what happens in the Detroit public school system.
Now, I know you and I both went to the same high school, so give me one quick word to anybody watching right now why they should bring their child back to Detroit public schools, because summer's getting ready to end.
Well, the district is moving forward. I mean, we're having conversations about teaching and learning right now, and I think that's important. We have improved our safety and conditions of our school district, and really looking forward to servicing the citizens of Detroit in a very positive way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate you being at our town hall. I'm going to send it over to Dave LewAllen right now. You have another audience member who wants to speak.
All right, Carolyn, appreciate that. We have Detroit 300 well represented here tonight. Mr. Blue is here. If you'd stand up with me, sir. Yes, sir. You are an important group doing good work in the community, Detroit 300. Your thoughts on where this city is today and where we need to go forward?
Well, where I see us going, let me backtrack a little bit. Even seeing those black cars, the big 4 cars, reminds me of in my childhood. And when I see those cars, it still strikes fears. I mean, even watching it here on TV, also the TMU. But moving forward, I see a lot of successes that we've been having, partnered with Detroit Police and other law enforcement agencies. We're doing magnificent things with our neighborhood police officers. Now in every precinct, we have an actual neighborhood police officer where people of the community can actually get an opportunity to meet a police officer that's not going to leave his area, to get to grow and get to know with him. We have other initiatives as we close this gap between law enforcement and things like you've seen in the old days where you run from the police getting beat up by the police. You know, for the last couple of years, we've been doing movies in the park where the community comes out and you get an opportunity to actually see a command officer, know the actual police chief, see the police chief, see the sergeants in your area, and get to meet them. And those are one of the things I think that's been effective in closing this gap.
How important, too, in 1967, there were 4,200 personnel in the Detroit Police Department. Only 200 were black. Today, the department is 58% African American. How important is that for policing and serving this community?
I think it's very important because there's a language outside of just the English language. There's a culture. And it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with being black, but being from the community and knowing the community. We've had occasions in these last 6 years, just as an example, where there's been law enforcement officers where we were invited to an actual mayor's event. And there were law enforcement officers that weren't familiar with the culture. And we're walking around asking who are the people in the orange shirts and what are their intentions. And so those are sort of the things that we have to get over. We have to understand who we are. We have to have officers that are willing to live in the community or get to know in the community. So those are the things that are important to bridging the gap between us and them.
Keep wearing the orange shirts. Keep doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Booth, thank you so much. Carolyn?
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. Right now, I'm going to send it over to Chuck Stokes. You have another member of our audience.
Thank you, Carolyn. Here's a man who really probably doesn't need any introduction. He's on television so much. Luther Keith, a retired Detroit News columnist, but he then took on another life as executive director of Arise Detroit. I heard Joe Hudson talk about neighborhoods. You live pretty much 24/7 dealing with the neighborhoods.
Yes, I do. First, I want to commend the film, Bill McGraw and all Free Press. It's very sobering to hear it. I was a teenager at that time, living right in that neighborhood, going to church in that neighborhood. So all those memories resonate very strongly with me.
Sure.
I think the most important thing to remember is that Detroiters have been busy and working the last 50 years, particularly the last 10. My work with Arise Detroit, we have hundreds of churches, block clubs, community groups engaged in all kinds of incredible initiatives all over the city. We have foundations, we have businesses, we have black businesses, we have entrepreneurs, we have all kinds of outreach programs for people to get busy and work. So it's not like a movie, we need a movie to get started. We've been working. What I hope this movie does is remind people that they need to get involved. We can't wish this to happen. We have to be involved and be connected. The other thing that I want to remind people, as we talk about, quote unquote, the new Detroit, the two Detroits, in fact, that we cannot repeat the mistakes of the past. 1967 happened because we had a community that felt locked out. So as we built the new Detroit, we have to make sure that this new Detroit does not lock out anybody. We have to make sure they're at the table, and not just at the table, helping make the decisions. If we do that, we can move forward. We have to step outside of our comfort zones and be afraid to deal with people who don't look like us. And I think if you put all that together, this is an incredible city, incredible amount of talent, and we can do it, and we can truly rise as a community, but it's going to take all of us to truly get involved and make that commitment.
Luther Keith, you have your annual Neighborhoods Day coming up in just a couple of weeks. When you started that, it wasn't chic necessarily to talk about Detroit neighborhoods.
Right.
Now it's being written about in New York Times, Washington Post, everywhere. Has your job become a lot easier with the comeback of Detroit?
It's never going to be easy because it's not easy. And we still have a lot of work. We've just scratched the surface with groups like Detroit 300 and so many other. I think what is good about it is that the focus now has turned to the neighborhoods. And see, I think, to make an editorial comment, that we like big, flashy skyscrapers and buildings and stadiums. We don't want to spend time in the neighborhoods where people are doing the work. Get involved in those neighborhoods. And so the job is not easy. It's inspiring, though, because the people of Detroit and the people who love Detroit, whether they live in the suburbs or even out of state, are very inspiring and to be part of this. So I think that what we should do is seize the moment and encourage everyone to be part of our 11th annual Arise Detroit Neighborhoods Day.
What's the date?
August the 5th. We're the only city in America that does this. We're going to have over 200 community service projects all over the city of Detroit. And so we can build on this. And it's not about one day. It's what we can do together throughout the year. And if we do that, we have incredible amounts of talent, people, and initiative. And if we do that, we can come together, and I'm hopeful that we will solve our problems. And so the movie that we make the next 50 years or the next 5 years from now, it's going to be very uplifting and inspiring.
Luther Keith, thank you, and keep on doing what you're doing. All right. Carolyn?
All right. Thank you so much, Chuck, and good work with Arise Detroit. Davey Lou, I'm going to send it over to you.
All right, Carolyn, thanks. And I'll ask Gail and Shirley to stand. Gail Radwan and Shirley Jackson live in the Sherwood Forest neighborhood in Detroit. And in fact, Gail, you wrote a book about Sherwood Forest and the neighborhood and how the neighborhood from the time that you've lived there has changed. So with Shirley, your neighbor, tell me about Sherwood Forest and how that neighborhood over the years has has changed?
All right. Well, Shirley and I have both lived in Sherwood Forest for a very long time, and actually, the reason that that I wrote the book, which is called "The Story of 100 Years in a Detroit Neighborhood," is that we are celebrating our 100th year as a neighborhood this year, and we feel like it's a neighborhood that's getting stronger, and we're optimistic about continuing as a viable neighborhood for many years to come. On the other hand, I was struck when we were watching the film a moment ago by one man's statement that 1967 is a story that hasn't ended. And I think that's very true. And I woke up this morning thinking, 50 years, and there has been a lot of work and a lot of things accomplished, but so much that hasn't been solved, and some of the things that precipitated what happened in '67 are still very much with us. So I too hope that 50 years from now we're going to be telling a very positive story, but I've learned that progress is slow.
It is slow. Shirley, would you agree with that? Progress is slow?
I absolutely agree. And I was struck recently because I visited Chicago. And remember Chicago 50 years ago. Chicago has always been a great city, but over the 50 years since the rebellions happened across our country, there has been huge investment in Chicago, unlike here where there was lots of there wasn't much disinvestment, in fact. And so I started thinking about what it means to pull together, and as people were talking, sharing skills comes to mind. In every neighborhood, including ours, in the city, there are very talented people who are very skillful, who have talents that they need to share. That means when you feel like relaxing, perhaps, if you can write a newsletter, you need to do it. If you can organize around some common goal that the neighborhood shares, it needs to be done.
A sense of neighborhood, and that's what you have. Ladies, thank you very much for coming tonight and for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Gail and Shirley. Carolyn?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Shirley. Certainly a beautiful neighborhood. Now I want to one of my favorite people, a former anchor and reporter and Hall of Famer, Mr. Eric Smith, who was on the front lines covering the riots. So first of all, I just want your quick comment on watching that documentary film. I mean, you were on those front lines with a helmet, with a flak jacket. You saw people die on our streets.
Unfortunately, yeah. Very hard for me to watch, very honestly. Too many unpleasant memories, and honestly, it's kind of sad to see my buddies up there, Billy and Jimmy, and the folks who are out there doing their best. It was a horrible experience, and I think anybody who spent those days out there on the street, whether you were in the neighborhood living or whether you were in one of the Army units or the National Guard, it was a nightmare. But this film is so important. I know my grandkids are watching this tonight, and they've asked me questions about this, and those questions are all right there on that screen. We have an opportunity. I think we, again, stand at a crossroads today. We know what history has told us. It's there. It's plain as day. We have to move forward based on that knowledge and the learning that's taken place in 50 years. We're a hell of a lot smarter in 50 years than we were then. I think a little more sensitive, but we've still made a lot of mistakes, and we're still making mistakes. And we need Washington to listen and Lansing to listen.
Tell me this. You drove through the neighborhoods right along with me. You were born and raised in the city of Detroit. We drove through some neighborhoods that are still burned up and torn up. But progress is being made, slowly but surely. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I agree. And I think one of the things we need to focus on as we move forward is all that vacant land in the city. We need to put that to use, whether it's agricultural use or whether we continue to build some housing. We have a tremendous opportunity here just in the land itself to bring something back and put it in place and make the communities solid again. Well, I think we've seen the housing thing divide us. The thing to me in the word community is everybody together. Work together, whether it's in a garden and right in your own neighborhood. We need to bring jobs back. We need to be more vocal in Lansing. Unfortunately, there's politics always involved in it.
Absolutely.
We'll never get away from that part. But I think once we learn what history has taught us, we're on the right road.
We are on the right road. Thank you so much, Eric, for being here. Yeah, wonderful. Chuck, I'm going to send it over to you. Hope is alive in the city. Hope is alive in our neighborhoods.
Indeed. Carolyn, we all know that Southeast Michigan is one of the most ethnically diverse regions of the country. Some say that's our strength. Some also say that's perhaps our biggest challenge. This man deals with it quite a bit. Steve Spreitzer, you're over the Michigan Roundtable for Diversity and Inclusion. How are we doing with diversity, especially as we look forward?
Well, one of the consequences of our hypersegregation in this region is far too many of us really don't know each other. A recent Pew study said 62% of us don't know someone who's Muslim. I'd say they probably don't know someone who's a Sikh, a Hindu. They probably haven't been in the home of someone from the black community, right? So this is a time where we can look at our saints or our sinners, but there are a lot of saints out there. Right? There are folks in workplaces making sure that they're creating employee groups and allowing people to bring their whole selves into the workplace. There are people in communities like Rochester and Plymouth that are like, how do we make sure people are welcome when they work here, when they come to visit, when they live here? Because communities are changing. Yet the bottom line is folks who come out of this region come out of it with the disease of racism, right? You can't escape it without being impacted by it. And to the degree that we examine that, is it to the degree that we're going to be better neighbors. But I think it takes a humility and a listening, and for folks who look like me, a lot of listening.
And you mentioned two key words, listening and talking, and the Michigan Roundtable is always open to help people who want to be able to move from where they are to where perhaps they need to be. All right.
You bet, Chuck.
Steve Spreitzer, thank you so much. Carolyn?
All right, thank you so much, Chuck. Dave, do you have any other interviews really quickly?
Here. Yeah, Jeff Horner's here. He's a Wayne State lecturer and contributed to the book Detroit 1967.
Yes,
Great to see you again. Quickly, I guess your reflections on the film and on the conversation that we've had here tonight.
I thought the film was wonderful, and as someone teaching a class presently on the rebellion, I was a little embarrassed not having seen the film yet. I thought the film was wonderful. I'm going to introduce myself to the director afterwards.
All right, now you said rebellion.
Yep.
It's been described as riots, insurrection, rebellion. Why rebellion for you?
Why rebellion for me? Well, the simplest answer I have is I think the term rebellion is one that reflects the moral justification upon that the whole uprising was justified. There was a moral justification for it. Rioting is just usually a collection of criminals, so forth. So I'm very much on the side of the rebellion. Yeah.
Very good. Jeff. Appreciate your contributions.
Yes.
Glad you were here tonight. Glad you had a chance to see this wonderful film as well.
Thank you very much.
All right, Jeff. Thank you so much. Carolyn?
Now, before we walk away, I'm going to speak to Laura Radwan right here. Stand up, Laura, for 1 second. Laura's sitting right behind her mom and Shirley, who are both educators. And I know that you moved back to the city of Detroit. You had traveled around and you came back to your old neighborhood and into a white and black neighborhood, and you loved coming back to the city, and it was really important to you.
Very important to me, and I think one of the most important ways to honor tonight and what Channel 7 has done with this documentary is to recognize that the power of Detroit is, in large part, the people who've lived here and remained here and are committed here, the business owners who stayed here from 67 and on. And beyond. And I think often in the media we have the idea that or the misperception that it's people coming in or someone's going to save Detroit.
Absolutely.
But it's really Detroiters who are doing that and have done that historically.
Thank you so much, Laura. Right now, I'm going to remind you, we're ending our Detroit 2020 Town Hall, but we have a very special show for you tonight coming on Channel 7 at 11:30. You're going to see all of the stories that we have put together about the rioting in 1967, talking to the clergy, talking to the military, talking to the police. It's truly amazing. I'm going to be doing this special show with Dave LewAllen tonight at 11:30, right after 7 Action News at 11. It is pretty amazing to see, wouldn't you say?
Well, we have covered a lot of stories over the last, 10 weeks or so, talked to an awful lot of people that have been involved in one way or another over the last 50 years and will continue to be, hopefully, in many years to come. So, yes, I hope everyone will join us.
We please want you to watch on Channel 7, starting at 11:30. Certainly eye-opening. We have certainly had an educational experience learning about the 1967 riots until now, should I say. Please join us tonight at 11:30 for our very special Detroit 2020 show on Channel 7. Have a great night, everyone.